Welcome back.
Hi.
How was your week?
Good. Good so far.
Yeah.
I just got out of class. Came straight over here, so.
From the new university or
Yes.
you're done transitioning?
Right.
Okay.
Yes. I started the semester now at University of Houston.
Okay.
So I'm not far like I was before. I was like an hour or so. Now I'm back home, which the commute is like 20 or 30 minutes, but I'm back home.
Okay. How is that? How's that going?
It's good. The commute isn't too terrible because I have friends that I carpool with, so we can use the HOV lane, so it gets us kind of past the morning traffic, which can be pretty bad going into downtown.
Cause anxiety all by itself.
Right. So that's good. Back at home with my parents. Both of my siblings are out of the house, so it's just me. So I think they were kind of happy to have me back because of, why I was coming back. But then
that
at the same time,
nest kind of thing.
But then at the same time, I'm coming back and I'm like, I was on my own for 2 years, so it's just been an interesting transition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you lived away, it was definitely more, you're in control, you're doing your own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would just kind of touch base with you now and again, or?
I mean, we were in, I say constant communication, at least every day, for sure every week when we were talking.
Yeah.
And I was normally home every weekend, so I saw them then. But during the week, I didn't, sounds kind of mean, but I didn't care to get in touch with them, because I was just, I had stuff to do.
Well, it's a whole job by itself.
Right, so.
Going to college. So.
I didn't need to have that job, and then the job of making sure I'm in communication with them all the time, but sometimes you have to do what they want you to do.
Yeah. So, moving back, and now that you're living with your parents again, correct? Mm-hmm. Where you were living before you left.
Right.
Okay. So has that, what kind of change has happened there? Because I know last time you talked about some difficulties just in communication. Has that changed at all, or?
No, we still have difficulties. I don't really know how to say what the problem is. That's why I'm here. But it's, you're at home, you're in high school, you're living with your parents, and then, either you stay or you leave, and of course I left and then came back. But as I left, I really found out who I was. When you live with other people, you definitely know what you've learned in your own home, the values that were instilled in you and things like that. And then you sort of learn, okay, I'm going to put up with this much. My parents may not put up with that. My siblings, my family may not put up with that, but I know that I can go this far and put up with this much.
You recognize your boundaries.
Exactly.
Based off of what you were taught.
And sometimes you go
now
past your boundaries and you're like, okay, we need to go back in.
Too far.
Exactly. And so, I had that for 2 years. And with 3 different people. Because I had 1 roommate my freshman year and 2 roommates my sophomore year. So, that's 3 different, people encounters that I lived with. And then the other thousands of people I encountered in class and, social events and things like that. And then coming back home, it was kind of like, not this exact thing, but just sort of like an idea of, okay, so what time will we be home tonight? And I was like, what? And of course, I want to, honor them and respect their rules and all that, but to just hear something like that question, not necessarily that question.
Well, because you had your own curfews and didn't have to answer to anybody for 5 or 6 days out of 7.
Right.
For 2 years. And now you're back into,
almost
like a time warp.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so, it never, I guess it never actually happened of what time you're going to be home, but what happened is I wouldn't be home by whatever time they had in their head. And it could be 10 o'clock one night, 1 a.m. the next night, and I'll get a text at both of those times on 2 different nights saying, hey, where are you? Are you coming home tonight? What? Yeah, yes. And if I'm not, I'll let you know. Or whatever it is. But it's just, it's an adjustment.
Okay. It's an adjustment. That's a positive way to look at it.
Well, the adjustment is now I'm hoping to find my own place to live.
Okay.
But that's probably not going to happen, at least within the next year or so. So it's not.
So how far is graduation?
This semester and then 2 more semesters. So it'll be December of 2015.
Okay. That's not too far.
No, and you kind of get to the end and you start thinking like, okay, undergrad is over. What about grad school? What about
Yeah.
something else? So those thoughts are kind of going around.
And then, do you think you'd consider doing the grad school while living at home with your folks, or?
I don't think I'll leave again the way I did for my first 2 years of college. I may leave the house. I may get my own home.
Mm-hmm.
But if I did grad school, I think it would be something that either I would do at the university I'm at, or possibly an online university.
Okay.
I'm really interested in that because it'll free up more time for me to actually have a job after I'm done with my undergrad.
So looking at staying in the area, regardless of how that looks as far as your address.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. That could change whenever we're done with this.
Okay.
You may convince me otherwise.
Well, I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm asking questions to help you kind of search through what it is that you're struggling with. Now, and I'm going to ask you a question, and if you're not ready, that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
But last time and the time before, you mentioned that some of the specific stressors in the relationship with your parents had to do with your relationships with boys.
Right.
Do you feel like going into that, or
we can? Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm
yeah.
It's at your pace and
absolutely,
and how you feel comfortable. So
since the last time we have spoken, I was sort of talking to someone and talking to a guy. We kind of went on some dates and things like that. But since then, he decided for me that we weren't going to be together anymore because of a situation he got himself into with another girl.
Okay.
So that is...
So is that kind of like the boundaries you talked about earlier with your roommates? You figured out where a boundary is for you?
I think so.
Is that what you mean by he made the decision for you?
Yes.
Not because he's in control of you?
No, not at all. I
choices he made.
Made it for...
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yes, that's what I meant. Yeah, so I told... Before, I told my mom about him, and she kind of doesn't show her emotions very well, or sometimes she, kind of shows a different emotion, and you think it's one thing, but it's not. So it's really sometimes hard to communicate to her.
So it's hard to read
her,
what she's...
Yes.
Okay.
It's difficult to communicate things like, hey, Mom, I kind of like this guy. Because then she's like, asking, she starts to go into, okay, well, you have school, you have this, and you have this. And she'll tell me, actually, she told me, she said, school is your number one priority. And that's the only thing you need to be worried about is school. And I looked at her, I was like, really? The 80 other things that I do? Those aren't things that are important too? Anyway. But yeah, so I told my mom, well then, actually this morning before I left for school, I was telling my dad that I didn't know if my mom had told him or not about the guy that I was talking to and liked. Uh-huh. But I told him, I said, what I just told you, he kind of made the decision and it's not going to happen anymore. And he didn't really say anything about it because he didn't know the guy. But in other guys past, I would say, it's kind of been like, maybe I wasn't comfortable enough to talk about boys with them just because I don't know what the protocol is as far as like, okay, if I am going to date this guy, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to bring him over? Is he supposed to meet you? Mm-hmm. Is he supposed to ask permission to date me? Because I want to do it right, because obviously I want it to be a successful relationship, but at the same time, I'm upset that I even brought this guy over to my house to meet my mom, because then I was like, okay, well, you just did this and now you're out the door. Mm-hmm. I don't want to bring over every guy that I kind of like.
Right.
I want it to be someone that's going to be serious.
Worth
so at
the
what
trouble
point
of...
do I... Right, so at what point do I bring them over and introduce them? So it's kind of all ambiguous. I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Is that ambiguity because the boundaries haven't been set by your parents, or because they keep moving the boundaries? Like you said, your mom was difficult to read. Is that?
I don't think they've told me what I'm supposed to do, because I asked her. I said, "What would you like me to do? What is right? What is wrong?" And she said, "Well, you know what's right." What? What is what? What do you want me to do? Because I wanted to do it right, and meaning
like in their perfect world,
exactly.
If they had their wishes,
exactly,
and they didn't
exactly
come through with telling you what their wishes are.
No, she didn't understand what I was meaning, so I just let it go. But I don't remember what I was saying. I don't remember, but it's kind of always awkward to talk about it. I think because normally the person that I bring home, or the person that I bring home, isn't my ethnicity.
Okay.
And that's a stretch for my family. In my eyes, they tell me it's not a stretch for them, but it is. And I know it is. I don't think they think it's wrong at all. And I don't necessarily think they have the not in my backyard mentality, but maybe a little bit.
So their words and actions aren't quite lining up?
No.
Okay.
I can remember being a young teenager, like 13, and having no business, being with any boys, which I wasn't. But, you're 13, you like boys. Yeah. You think they're cute. And I remember one time I was with my dad, and he told me, he said, Carley, you could bring home a purple, white, yellow, and just name several colors.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't matter as long as it's the right person that you're supposed to be with. And I don't know if they realized what they were saying at that moment.
The permission they were giving you.
Exactly.
Because had you been open at that point about your interests?
I really don't remember saying, hey, Mom and Dad, I think this type of person is attractive. I don't know. And then people that I've met, like in college and things like that, and they see what I'm attracted to, a lot of people have told me, Carley, I just think it's a phase. I think you're going to grow out of it. And I don't know that it is a phase, because the very first boy I liked at 10 was not my ethnicity. And it's been the same since then.
Yeah.
And so I don't know when I said, hey, Mom and Dad, by the way. I don't know if they realized that because of the friends I kept. Because a lot of my friends are biracial or a different race or ethnicity. And so I don't know if that gave them I really don't know when it was in their brains that they were like, Carley doesn't like what we think we like.
So then, let me ask you this. Is it an aversion to boys that are your same ethnicity? Or is it just...
Me or them?
Yours.
Oh.
Like, do you have an aversion to boys of
no, not
your
at
ethnicity?
All. Not
or
at
it
all.
just seems to be that you have a tendency to like others?
It's a tendency, but... And I've said this before to my friends, or just to people that... Especially people that have issues with it. And the people that normally have issues with it hold no weight in my life. Because I don't let them, put their influences on me like I don't put it on theirs. But I tell them, if I'm in public and I'm by myself, I don't have anybody with me, I'm just by myself, and there's going to be someone that hits on me or that finds me attractive or says you're beautiful or something, it's going to be either someone biracial, so if it's, black with something else, or if it's just a black man, that's what it's going to be. And then it would go into, other ethnicities after that. But, so it's not just me liking them. It's definitely, I guess, me by myself, just what people find attractive in me. That sounds kind of conceited.
No, I understand what you're saying. And then that's actually, my wheels are turning when you're saying that. So I'm wondering, it's kind of like a chicken versus the egg. Which one came first?
Right.
Is it that you're really interested in these boys because you're just plain flat out interested in that type of boy, or is it that's the type of boy who has typically shown you the most attention,
and so it's kind of like it trained me,
kind of like a positive reinforcement.
Right.
Oh, I keep getting what I like over here, so I'm going to keep going over here.
Right.
And I haven't necessarily gotten what I don't like or detest necessarily from over on this side.
Right.
I'm just getting more reinforcement from over here, so I'm kind of leaning towards that.
So it's not an aversion, because if
it's
anybody makes you feel good,
then
it's like, I kind of like this person. So it's not an aversion, but it is like what you said, like it's a positive reinforcement.
Well, that makes perfect sense to me. I just my goal here is in our sessions and when we talk about these types of things is to hopefully help you understand why you feel certain ways, but then to also maybe give you some tools as to how you can, I guess, include your parents in that journey. Because they sound like they are a very integral part in your life and the direction that you're going. And so I think it's very important to you to have their blessing and their approval. So I'm just wondering if maybe we can continue. Again, if you're okay with that, and we'll go at your pace, not. And any time that I ask something or bring something up and you're not ready for it, you just steer clear, and we'll try again later.
Absolutely.
So, okay.
Thank you.
Well, same time next week.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Thanks.